Hey guys, what's going on? This is your Blue Division breakdown. I'm Dan, and I am joined by Hunter and Matt. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. Hey,
I'm doing fantastic. I'm having a champion time right now.
Yes, so our title of this week's breakdown is Let's Have a Champion Time because this is the only time during the regular season that two past champions face off in the regular season. And with that, I think that is the first battle we can break down this week. So let's take a look at it. We've got Jess versus Matt. So the pick'ems this week had Matt as the favorite, and he did end up delivering with a 2-0 win with a +6 differential. So I think the first battle was definitely a tale of two halves of a battle. Matt was able to get an early charm off with a Raichu into the Rhyperior, which pretty much weakened it. Rhyperior did get a pretty lucky crit on the Celesteela, though, which brought it down to 12 health while Dynamaxed. However, that charm just over time wore down the Rhyperior, and while Jess called every Protect correctly, like the first 3 or 4 turns, Matt sort of picked up on her calls by the end and was calling her protects with good double targeting at the end. And a second charm from Raichu into Rhyperior after a weakness policy activation pretty much sealed that battle up. Battle number two, it was just Celesteela doing Celesteela things, pretty much maxing and going off. There's not a lot to say about that. I will say Mamoswine and Sock both impressed me with close combat and other kills, especially Mamoswine with thick fat being able to take almost negative damage from a Rhyperior's Heat Crash. But overall, I thought this was a pretty commanding win, showing two different game plans from Matt. But what do you guys make of this battle?
okay. Well, the first thing that I was the first thing I noticed when I was watching this battle was the sock, and I was just like, okay, so this thing is Choice Scarf. So looking at her team, I'm pretty sure that Scarf Sock was pretty much there to outspeed the things that would give it trouble. So uh, I think excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm kind of stumbling over my own words. I think Sock actually has a pretty good matchup against this team. It's 5 months for super effective, and then it had Ice Punch too, so it hits the Dragonite too. So I think Matt had a pretty good opportunity to bring Sock, and he showcased it with in game one at least, and game two was pretty much just oh man, Celesteal is ridiculous. I would know, I would know from week one. It's ridiculous. I think Matt did a great job prepping and made a great adjustment game two to leave Celesteal. So yeah, Matt, what do you have to say about this game?
Well, game one, after that crit happened on the first turn, I kind of just thought it was over. I still tried, obviously, but I was really not confident that I would be able to bring it back. But yeah, the Sokka and the Mamoswine uh, really came through for me. Those were sort of some of the last additions on my team. Uh, I was talking to Ryan earlier in the day. We played later at night, and I was talking to Ryan about the thick fat option on Mamoswine, and I thought I was kind of crazy for considering it because obviously she's got Incineroar. You run Oblivious on your Mamoswine, right? Um, but I felt like I had enough other stuff to deal with Incineroar, and I felt like the coaching with the weakness policy would be good enough to offset the Intimidate. So I figured, and I also figured she would probably tech some fire moves to deal with the Celesteela because she didn't really have a whole lot of ways to hit it hard. Turns out I was right; she had fire coverage on both the Dragonite and Rhyperior. So um, and the not taking super effective damage while getting your weakness policy activated from those fire moves was super nice, and it ended up coming into play there. So and then the sock, a big part of what it was for was to outspeed and one shot that Kartana because the Kartana did give me a little bit of trouble. I had some stuff to deal with it. I actually had a special Archeops with Power Herb, Meteor Beam, and Heat Wave. Um, for both of her tier one picks. But yeah, the Sock and the Mamoswine just came through so nicely. They did way more than I than I would have expected, honestly, especially since I didn't actually max the Mammal Swine. Because part of the main game plan I had with these two was Scarf coaching with a Dynamax Mammal Swine. I didn't expect them to do that as well as they did, just coming in the back. And then game two, I figured the Celesteela Grimmsnarl stuff was kind of an easy pick because partially because the Beware I noticed in game one was not carrying Unnerve. Um, a huge part of why I brought the Raichu in the first place in game one was I was kind of afraid that she might go for her Hail mode and position the Arctozolt next to the Unnerved Beware so that she could break through the Wackenberry that I had on Celesteela because I was carrying it again this week. And when I saw it wasn't Unnerve, I figured, all right, Wackenberry's going to work. Even if she brings Hail, I'm okay with going up against the Arctozolt. Turns out she didn't bring Hail, which was her main way of, I think, dealing with the Celesteela. So the Celesteela Grimmsnarl were just able to run through her whole team, especially with the Reflect and the Steel Spike boosts, because her team is overwhelmingly physical. It's kind of easy to just boost up your defense in a few different ways. Charm on Raichu is also great for that. So that was kind of a weakness at first that I thought I could exploit. So those are my thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I noticed something similar last week when I played Jess. That Intimidate seemed very strong into a lot of her team. And I was curious about the Archeops, so that was for both Kartana and Incineroar, because I'd never really seen a Power Herb special set before, but I was a big fan of that in Team Preview and very sad that it didn't hit the field. But it's cool that I know that it exists, at least.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's something that a lot of players would expect, but because Archeops' attack is obviously higher than a special attack,
Right.
but a special attack is still base 112, so it's very very usable. It outspeeds Kartana, so Heat Wave is super nice. Yeah, I think it was probably going to be a pretty nice surprise, and honestly, I wouldn't have bothered revealing that if Jess hadn't just gotten rid of that Kartana. So.
Right.
um, I thought it was. I thought I might as well let you guys know that that's what I was doing. It was a cool set. I'm also a little bit disappointed that it didn't hit the field, but just didn't really need to, especially since there was turned out there was no Incineroar.
Well, maybe one of the next few weeks we can get the Archeops onto the field. But with that, Hunter, why don't you go ahead and handle this game with Charles and Toxic?
Yeah. Okay. I just want to say a couple things before I actually get into the actual game. Toxic left me a couple notes to mention during the breakdown privately, and he wanted me to say that AV Mudsdale, Lipard, and Gastrodon made prep really hard for his team. And if you guys watched the game, it kind of reflected that a little bit. So I'll just get right into the game. So Toxic leads the Crocodile Clefairy lead, which is pretty solid into Charles's Heatran Lipard. And on paper, it should look like a great matchup for Toxic, but Charles, Charles is a good player. He had the air balloon on the Heatran, so it actually forced Toxic to go for the Max Dark into Heatran to pop it. Um, so it's actually like a pretty unoptimal start for Toxic IMO because in the process, like his Clefairy goes down, right? So then he brings in the Dragapult, and it gets T-waved by the Lipard, and then it just crippled it down, and he turned out sped, and then Charles goes for the Snarl to get chip on his Dragapult so that it dies to Naganadel when it comes in. He mentioned that in his video. And then Heatran goes down to the Max Quake from the Crocodile, and then um, he he makes an aggressive play and switches out the Lipard to preserve the fake out pressure, and he switches into Naganadel on the Earthquake. He actually lives it. It did about 90 to 95%, so crazy play, but it ended up working out. Um, and then the combination of Naganadel and Gastrodon put Charles in a 2v1 position once Dragapult went down, so it was Lipard Gastrodon versus Reuniclus, and unless Toxic had some miracle happen, Charles won that game. Um, so before I get into game two, I just want to say Toxic's choice of EQ instead of high horsepower is a little off to me. He was whittling down his own Dragapult and gave Charles an easier path to victory with Naganadel in the back. Although he didn't know he had Naganadel, so I mean, in Toxic's defense, but he didn't post the pace until later, and Charles made great plays across the board, especially with the Heatran Max Guard turn 2 of game 1, and it was to time Toxic's Dynamax ending, so he didn't have to worry about switching into a Quake or a Dark or anything like that. So it was a pretty smart move on his part. So going into game 2, I wrote Mudsdale Goats.
I'm pretty sure it's a
um,
horse, but I guess it's up for interpretation.
True. You know, I mean, Pokemon has some weird combinations sometimes. Who knows? I think it's a horse too, but anyways, so Charles leads the Mudsdale Eldegoss into Toxic's same lead, the Crocodile and Clefairy, and basically Mudsdale just did what it wanted. Especially since Charles reads the Max Geyser from the Dragapult, um, and reads the Gastrodon to absorb it in the next turn, and then after Clefairy went down, Toxic basically told me in DMs he knew he lost. He didn't really have much offense to deal with the Mudsdale Gastrodon, and once he maxed the Dragapult and the geyser got read by him, he kind of realized he had no way to deal with the Mudsdale. So basically, Charles's Mudsdale and Gastrodon outbooked everything on Toxic's team, and yeah, he didn't really bring enough offense. Like Toxic had Dragapult, Carbink, Clefairy, and Crocodile in that game. So as you guys can kind of see on paper, he doesn't really have anything to deal with the Mudsdale and Gastrodon combination very effectively. So Charles kind of wins that second game. He outbooked Toxic's team and won that game 4-0 and won the set +6 2-0. And just one more thing before I let you guys dive into this. I just had one note to give the Toxic, and you know, it's just kind of hard for me to understand why he didn't bring the Serena. I mean, if he notices in prep that Mudsdale Gastrodon Lipard is a really big issue for his team, you may as well just slap it on there. I mean, I think it's doing a little bit more than Carbink in this scenario. I know he brought it for Ally Switch shenanigans, but um, I'm just really surprised not to see the Serena come, and I think that's a little bit to his own downfall because I mean Serena helps with those 3 months tremendously, and I know it's hard to bring Serena into Heatran, Naganadel, Corviknight, and Eldegoss, but I mean if you look on paper versus those mons in prep, you've got to see that even with the Rindo Berry on Gastrodon, which is kind of a staple against anybody who has a grass type, you kind of see that Serena just helps you a lot. And I think the mons that Toxic has a hard time with do not like Serena. And you can kind of infer that Charles will be bringing those because it gives Toxic a hard time. So I don't know if he just preferred other mons or just kind of overlooked it or anything like that, but I think that was kind of a bit to his downfall. And yeah, so what do you guys think about this game?
Yeah, I can go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, yeah, I definitely agree on the Serena point. I mean, I'm not even a huge fan of Serena, but you know, in that case, if you know that you are gonna have a problem with that combination of Mons, then yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. Even though, I mean, I sort of get it. Both of Charles' tier ones are gonna blow Serena up. I get it, but you know, if you have a particular weakness to some combination, just because your opponent has stuff to deal with your answer to that combo, that doesn't mean you don't bring that answer. You just have to build in a way that the rest of your team, like the Dragapult, for example, maybe can help deal with the Heatran and the Naganadel while the Serena does stuff for the Gastrodon Mudsdale combination. So I mean, he did sort of try. I mean, I can see an effort here, like with the energy ball and the Reuniclus. I just don't. I don't think it was quite good enough. Especially when, like you said, he notices he has a weakness to that sort of thing. And just as a side note, you also have immunity to Liepard shenanigans when Serena's just sitting on the field. So that's just an added benefit. I especially would have liked to see it over the Blastoise. I think two of the main points that I wanted to point out here about Toxic's play. One of them being I really like the use of Crocodile, and I really don't like Blastoise being here. Crocodile was great. because it has a good matchup into a lot of this team. It's immune to pranksters, so you don't have to deal with life art shenanigans. Ground types do very, very well into both of Charles' tier ones. Another reason that Serena might have been okay here. Um, and the not bringing Intimidate was probably smart, just in case he sees the Corviknight, and I like the Moxie combined with the maxing the Crocodile, especially next to Clefairy. You're going to have a lot of bulk with between the Max and the Assault Vest and the Friend Guard. I like that a lot, so I gotta commend Toxic for that. The Blastoise here, I kind of have the same problem as him bringing the Blastoise last week, because both times he's brought this Shell Smash set, which just didn't belong in either matchup. I mean, Clefable last week just kind of invalidates Shell Smash Blastoise almost entirely, and so does Gastrodon here. So, and Blastoise, Maxwell last season showed that you can use Blastoise for more than just that. Even if you wanted to bring Blastoise in, I think in both situations, it's probably more beneficial to go with a bulky support set rather than a Shell Smash set that just straight up loses to these two different kinds of redirection. So would have really liked to see a Serena in that particular slot. So I'd say that's just sort of a lesson in don't you shouldn't always be trying to ham fist something into a particular matchup where it doesn't belong just because the mon itself is powerful.
Yeah, I can generally agree with that. I do think Serena Dragapult would have been a very powerful lead into a lot of Charles's stuff. Uh, but also full credit to Charles for seeing that Lipard, Gastrodon, and Mudsdale were a very good defensive core against a lot of what Toxic brings. And I do think this shows a bit of one of the general weaknesses of Toxic's team that I talked about in the preseason, that he has a lot of solid mons that can have a lot of different options, but if he starts branching into the options with the mons, he loses some of the offensive power, and then his team just really lacks in offensive power. Uh, I just thought his damage output wasn't high enough this match, and Charles was able to take advantage of that with good defensive options that can grow out of control, or that's basically it. Good defensive options that can outlast his defensive options, because without the offensive punch, Toxic was really missing a way to break through Charles's team.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yep, I agree with that.
But with that being said, let's move on to our last match of the week. Matt, I believe you are handling the matchup between me and Dina.
Indeed. Okay. So the first game, I think, is rather straightforward. Dina was going with a follow me nasty plot game plan with the Clefable and the Rotom, and Dan responded with a Choice Specs Primarina with Dazzling Gleam, which I thought was a very creative play. I'll have a little bit more to say about that when we get to the end of this match here. But it was a very good bring for any kind of lead that was going to rely on Clefable. And after that, I mean, the Rotom got its nasty plot, but it was not at high enough HP to really do much with it. It couldn't reasonably max after that. And so I believe you. Oh, and you set up Tailwind, and you just finish it off after that. So it could have lived a hit if it maxed, but then it would have been at very low HP, and then her max was kind of just gone. So I think that really put her on the back foot. It just kind of ruined all of her plans, and she made a valiant effort to come back. The Max Poison onto the Primarina was a good bring. Actually got the one shot, even though sometimes I'm really not impressed with the damage output from Max Knuckle and Max Ooze, but Cinderace is strong, so it got the one shot, and I think she made a valid attempt to come back, but it just once her main game plan was shot, it was was a little too much for her to handle. So I think that game was pretty straightforward. The next one, she did quite a bit better. I think the helping hand thunderbolt play to just take out the Primarina right off the bat, especially since I believe you did not click Tailwind that first turn. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you're correct there.
Okay, so she was able to take it out without taking any damage with the helping hand thunderbolt. So that was a really good adjustment, and I think that's actually a really good example of how you can adjust with your play rather than just picking a different set of bonds. I've talked about that on some of these breakdowns in seasons past, but I think I see a lot of people trying to over adjust by bringing a different set of mons sometimes when they lose a game when you don't necessarily need to do that. Sometimes you just need to click different buttons with the same Pokemon. So I think this is a good example of that. Um, and but I think her downfall in game two was really just came from she just didn't seem willing to Dynamax the Rotom, which was a big problem for her. You brought in the Garchomp after the Primarina went down, maxed it, took out the Clefable with the Max Steel Spike, and she was able to get a Nasty Plot off uh, almost for free. I think she did take an Air Slash, but that's okay. Um, and then the um, the Articuno came out after that, and she tried to. I guess this was her first mistake in game two. She tried to match Tailwind, even though the Garchomp was naturally faster than the Rotom, so it was a sort of a futile effort there. I think she probably needed to just max the Rotom immediately after Nasty Plotting. Um, and she sort of just let the Garchomp do whatever it wanted to do, uh, which I think was really her downfall. So it would have been a very different game if she had maxed, even two or three turns after she nasty plotted. If she maxed the Rotom there at some point, that's really what would have given her the chance to come back. But like you said, when the Cinderace came in after the Articuno went down, and she Dynamaxed, I think you said in your commentary, if this is the Cinderace maxing, I just win. Which I think is exactly right. Rotom was, given that Garchomp was the big threat there, Rotom is the thing that needed to max. So I think it was still well played on your part. I don't know that a max Rotom would have definitely given her the win. You still could have pulled it out there, but that's what would have really put her back in the game. So. What are your guys' thoughts on this one?
Um, so you pretty much covered everything I really wanted to say. I wanted to point out that I thought the Rotom Wash Max was actually a little bit better than Cinderace. Just because, yeah, I mean you pretty much said everything I wanted to say. Other than that, yeah, I think that's a really good point that you made. Yeah, her downfall was kind of trying to match the Tailwind with Articuno. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, you pretty much covered everything I said. Dan, what do you think about this one?
So, the Primarina set, to get around the Clefable, I actually wanted to have two spread moves with specs. I really thought I'd be clicking Hyper Voice a lot more than I'd be clicking Dazzling Gleam, because if she led literally anything reasonable besides Rotom Clefable, Hyper Voice just did so much. Like, if she led the Cinderace and Dynamaxed it, the Specs Hyper Voice, because I did EV to outspeed the Cinderace at neutral, hits it for 75 to 88%, and then Garchomp comes in, and under Tailwind, Garchomp is faster than +1 Cinderace. So that was sort of the thought there, and the Runerigus, it one-shots it unless she's running almost max HP, max special defense investment. So if I see Runerigus Clefable, and I'm assuming she's going to go for a Trick Room set, a Heat Wave from the Tornadus, and a Specs Hyper Voice, make sure Runerigus can never get up Trick Room unless it is running a Water Resist Berry. So that was sort of the thought with the Primarina lead. I also did bring Kaparaja, so Matt would be proud of me in game one. It never hit the field, but it was there. But I do
Not good
think,
enough.
I do think in game two, Garchomp being able to get to +2 defense and then getting a free Intimidate on the Cinderace with the switch in just made it so even though I did crit with the Air Slash to do 40% onto the Rotom earlier, it was still probably the better max option. In the sand, Garchomp is going to be taking 2 of its attacks, most likely, even if it sets Rain right after that. Like, it's not one-shotting the Garchomp in the sand, but I do think she would have had more options with Rotom, especially since I was able to flinch it with a Rock Slide. But overall, I felt pretty solid going into the matchup, knowing that the Rotom lead was the big issue, and she didn't over adjust and go away from the Rotom. And I do like the Helping Hand Thunderbolt play. I really strongly considered switching into Garchomp at that point, because I thought she might just launch the Thunderbolt, but I also didn't want to get hard punished by a nasty plot. Like if she attempted it again and I switched into Garchomp, I felt like losing Prim for free, I was more likely to win than if I switched in Garchomp and she got up a free nasty plot on a full health Rotom with a full health Clefable available. So that was basically my thought process for why I didn't switch the Prim at that point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And yeah, I do agree that even with your Primarina game plan, it's the Clefable Rotom is often still um, the, uh, the optimal play. Um, but I think uh, like you said, going for the specs with two different spread moves is a great way to get past this Clefable stuff that she seems to be relying on. I mean, it's hard to say, she's relying on it because we've only seen 2 battles so far. So, who knows what else is going to come out. Um, but I will say that from my perspective, as somebody who has definitely relied heavily on redirection before in a couple of different leagues, I will say that strong spread moves are something that you really need to look out for when that's the kind of team that you have. I think in in the future, Jill probably want to look a little bit closer at the spread moves on her opponent's teams and just see which ones they have available and how what kind of partners for Clefable can take those spread moves the best, or in situations where maybe there's too many spread moves to deal with one particular Clefable partner, maybe uh, switched up and go with a different kind of a lead. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's definitely something to watch out for in the future, because I know there have been a couple of times when I've been a little overly reliant on redirection, and some strong spread moves kind of ruined my day. So something to look out for sure.
Yeah, that was definitely in my mind with building as well. That's why I went for Rock Slide, Hyper Voice, and Dazzling Gleam and Heat Wave all in the same team. Was to make sure that I could hit most of the things on her team without Clefable just letting something go off for free.
Absolutely, yeah.
But with that being said, let's take a look at where we are standings wise for the season. So, in the blue division, we have 3 coaches that are undefeated, including Charles, who had the bye week 1 and the win this week. So, Matt, you and I are undefeated along with Charles, who is the only person who's had a bye in the first 2 weeks and also a win. Then we've got Dina at 1-1. Then Jess, Toxic, and Hunter have all, if we're undefeated, they are all defeated so far, but I don't really expect that to continue. I think our division is going to have a lot of parity moving forward. But what are your guys' thoughts on where things stand right now?
Yeah, so as you guys can see, it's pretty much like there's only a couple people who are 1-1 or 1-0. I think a lot of players, including Matt and Dan, you guys you've shown a lot of strong performances. That's for sure. And other ones, such as myself, have shown not so strong performances. And yeah, like you said, I think this league is very very competitive, and the blue division is competitive in itself. I expect that to change too. Um, Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, nobody's. I don't think anybody's in the whole league is going to go, the whole time without a win. Um, I am a little bit like at first glance, I'm a little bit surprised to see Jess down at the bottom at 0-2. But then you consider who her first two opponents were. I think Dan, I think it's fair to say that you and I are some of the top players in the blue division, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not super surprising to see that somebody, regardless of who it is, somebody who's playing us in the first 2 weeks ends up 0-2. I don't think that's at all an indication of how her season is going to go, especially considering her past success and some of the new Pokemon that she's picked up, which you'll talk about with Maxwell in your next video. But just an interesting thing to see a previous champion down there, but she's not staying there. I think we all know that.
Yep.
Yeah, I can agree with that. She has had a rather rough schedule the first 2 weeks, and I will say on the premise of schedules, shout out to the scheduling committee for giving me the two women in the league in back-to-back weeks to open up the season. Uh, Not sure how I feel about that, but I was in a lose-lose situation. I either am the misogynist who beat the two women, or I had to take a loss. So, you know, I guess I took the lesser of two evils and went undefeated. But I am looking forward to playing Charles next week. Who are you guys up against this coming week?
I'm up against Toxic, so one of us won't be no wins anymore, and one of us will get a win next week, so that'll be fun.
Me and the Bye are gonna have it out. It's going to be a real tough week.
I
It's
don't
going to be
know.
difficult.
I don't know if you look at people who have played Bai so far, only one of them has a win. So
Oh,
Bai
oh,
is doing pretty
oh,
well.
yeah, look at that.
But do you guys have any closing thoughts on the week?
Um, yeah, I have a couple. One thing I just want to say is I was a little bit harsh on Toxic, but only because I know he'll take what I have to say. He won't take it personally, but I think every single week that Toxic has played in this league, he has improved week to week to week, and I think he will continue to do that. Not downplaying Charles's play, I think he played incredibly, but Toxic is not a bad player, and he just kind of his game plan kind of fell apart right in front of his eyes a little bit, and I think he'll do his best to improve. So I just want to say that. And even though I did not play this week, I had a lot of fun spectating and analyzing games this week with you guys. So Matt, what do you think?
I don't really have any final thoughts myself, but I think I agree with what you said. I think a lot of anybody who there's inevitably going to be players who are maybe trying to get their bearings in the beginning of the season, maybe trying to get the rust off, maybe trying to get used to some of the Pokemon that they have that they're not familiar with. It happens. So I think that regardless of how the records go, we're going to see some improvement from a lot of players as the season progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. I am definitely looking forward to the rest of the season as well. But thank you two for joining me again. This was Dan, Matt, and Hunter, your Blue Division hosts for the weekly breakdown for the MDL. And with that, we are signing off. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.